Okay, we have a question or comment from Ian Tapp.
When you say for new owner confidence, people that might be unfamiliar, who would use a licensed realtor to buy a $300,000 home, wouldn't they follow that? To buy a $300,000 horse, you might look for a licensed bloodstock agent.
Yeah, that's basically the point that I'm trying to make. That it just instills more confidence in the buyer that they know their product they're getting is worth what it's worth.
That was a question for Kate, Ian says.
Sorry.
I think that what that code of ethics has is a contract, and the most important piece of information between a buyer and a seller is going to be a contract that states that you are going to follow a code of ethics to do so. Whether you need to use the licensing is just a word. I feel like if you're going to agree to comply by a set of rules, must you necessarily be licensed to do so, or can you just sign a contract stating you will do so with punishments by law? So that's my viewpoint.
From an owner's point of view, I'll have to agree with Michael with this one, unfortunately, Kate. Representing the owners, I come to the sales to purchase a yearling, new owner involved, unknown. You employ the bloodstock agent to do a job is to go out and seek a horse for you on your behalf, and you end up purchasing something that becomes a wobbler or is full up with viewed and trotted out next morning and it's lame. So with this, implementing this kind of licensing agreement through establishing a federation of bloodstock agents, for example, would just try and eliminate that uncertainty and just to improve the integrity of these employees of the industry.
From a commission's point of view and regulations, I definitely think it is achievable and it will benefit the industry through the integrity. I think it must be done on a national level rather than a state where there is one license. I think that there needs to be a body established to set out the rules and regulations, and that also provide the penalties if the licensees were to break the rules.
All right, any more questions? All right, time to vote. Who thinks that a national licensing of bloodstock agents with penalties for those who are proven to act unethically is the solution? It's going to be a close vote. What do you think? I like this, though, back-to-back close votes. It's stimulating. Now, yeah, you got everybody thinking. That's good. Is this even closer, Ian? Wow. 31 say no. 26 say yes to that. You're shot down on that one. That's okay. We'll move on to the bonus round. That is horse safety, welfare, and public perception. And we start with the ban on race day medication.
Public perception. I'm actually going to not help the cause because I don't agree it's in the best interest of the public that race day medication is banned. So I'm not actually going to probably help the vote, but that's my opinion on actually the proper usage of medication. I think medication needs to be restricted in its uses. I think it needs to be rebranded, be called therapeutic medication, and restricted in cases where it's needed. We've already discussed it earlier this evening. There is a time and a place for it. It will create a better picture in the long run if you see athletic horses performing at their optimal best, and I think you could have some negative images portrayed if horses were to bleed through the nose, or if they were just not running to their best, had they not been treated as the athletes that they are.
From a regulations point of view, I believe that the race day medication should be banned, mainly due to the fact of I believe that it is a poor public perception. I think that at the moment there's a huge divided opinion on the issue, and it's creating a number of issues for the industry. I think that the quicker that the industry can make a decision on the issue will be benefit to the industry. The rules and regulations need to be uniform between the states. I think this can be done through a national body, through the interstate compacts. I also believe that there should be a lot stricter penalties given to licensees who do break the rules.
From a trainer's perspective, there's some points I agree with you on, there's some points I don't, but I think there's also some middle ground here too. I think that, if you completely ban all medications and then up the penalties for violations, you're going to have a lot of violations right off the bat, just from accidental things. It's just going to make racing look absolutely awful. And from a trainer's perspective, I think that the middle ground here can be found, just like Breeders' Cup is saying they're phasing out race day medications. That's fine. I think it's great. And I also think that maybe graded stakes should not, should ban maybe race day medications as well. But, with that being said, I think that there also needs to be an increase in the requirements for a horse to go on Lasix. I don't think it should be completely banned from regular racing, excluding obviously the Breeders' Cup and graded stakes. But for regular racing, I think that if there's stricter requirements, so like if a horse actually does bleed out its nose, give it the opportunity to have some Lasix. Like Matt said, it's for the best interest of the horse to give it a chance. You don't want these horses bleeding everywhere. But then also, I think that there should be maybe like a 1, 2, 3 strike you're out with horses that do bleed, because they shouldn't be out there. It's poor for the perception of the sport. But I don't think you should full on completely ban all race day medications from every level of the game.
Internationally, I guess this was touched on earlier with regards to the Breeders' Cup decision. All we care about is that for graded stakes, the high level racing, that there is no race day medication, so that it is brought in line with how the rest of the world operates. As it is mostly these horses that enter the breeding pool, especially through the stallions who would shuttle internationally. So definitely the great to see the Breeders' Cup do what they've done, and hopefully that filters down to all graded stakes throughout the US very, very shortly.
I just have one quick statement from a racetrack operator's point of view. Matt brought up rebranding medication and educating the public as to the uses of therapeutic medication and to Lasix. And I completely agree, and I think one way that this is already being done is in California, the vets need to record everything that they've done for the mornings. They need to submit it to the horse racing board by 10 o'clock every morning. And this offers a view of transparency to our industry. And if things like this are totally making the industry more transparent, if that would be educated to the public, then we wouldn't find as much of a perception problem as we currently have now.
Do we have any questions about as much of can this ban work, race day medication ban work? Do we have any questions? All right, you've made your cases. A show on the vote. Can a ban on race day medication work in an effort to find a solution? This has actually turned into work, hasn't it? Because it's gotten close now. Oh, okay, not as close as I thought. 43 say yes, 19 say no. Y'all did very well with that. Our second question, our second solution find here in the horse safety, welfare, and public perception. Can the ban of the use of the whip be an effective way to find a solution?
From the trainer's perspective again, I think that the ban of the whip is not a good solution. Just going back to my own riding, I was always taught hands, legs to hand, right? Well, jockeys, when they're on a horse, they can't really use their legs. It's all about their hand. And when you have a horse that's getting out and being very dangerous, or just issues where they're not staying straight in the stretch, And the only tools they have are their hands and their whip. And for that reason, it's a safety issue for the horse and the rider. And I know from a public perception, it doesn't look good whipping the horse, but it's a tool, and they need training to have it done, to be done correctly. But I think that, whip isn't going to kill a horse, but it could potentially, if a rider doesn't have it, there could be serious issues with controlling a horse.
I'd like to agree with, sorry, Kate. I'd like to agree with Leo. I don't think banning the whip's a good solution, although I do think the use of the whip should be regulated better. I think there are models in other countries such as Australia where the whip use is limited, and I think this has been in those countries it's been great for the public perception of the use of whips. Also, the use of apprentice schools I think have been a great deal in the success of that. Apprentices being brought through the schools, they've been taught to ride out horses and better how to use the whip. And I think this has been a great success for the industry.
I was just going to say, from a point of sales companies and consigners, we use whips as well in our 2-year-old sales, and we obviously don't use them to hit the horse, but they are, as Leah stated earlier, a tool. And if you ban them on race, or if they are banned on race day, how is that going to affect how they're used in 2-year-old sales? And for us, they're used as a tool if a horse is going out of control or, making situations dangerous for a rider. So I don't think that I think it's something we need to think about if they're banned for race day, how it will affect our sales as well.
From a public perspective, it seems that actually none of us agree with our own solutions. So, because I don't either. I don't think it needs to be banned. I think I was talking to Chris McCarron earlier, and I think there's definitely a sort of a change in culture that can be encouraged amongst the jocks, amongst the trainers. I think instead of calling it a whip, call it a crop. Encouragement rather than to hit and whip, because it has negative connotations, which if it truly is in the best interest of the horse to get the best out of it, then it's got to be an encouragement. And I think that would make great steps in improving how it's perceived amongst the public as actually being justifiable.
Sorry, before we vote there, I'm going to disagree with you all. I think it's from a TV perspective, I can understand the jockey safety aspect. I can understand controlling the horse. But if you want to sell this sport, you're not you can't be seen to be beating animals. And I've grown up with horses, and I understand that it's not the horse isn't necessarily hugely damaged by correct use of the whip, but Joe Public doesn't realize that. Someone living in an apartment in New York who's just getting interested in the game, there's a lot more people out there not involved with horses than there are involved with horses. And I think that the use of the whip, albeit if it's correctly used, you're still raising a stick to an animal. And I don't think there's any other sport where they do that. Well, public sports.
Not on free TV, no. I've heard. But